Go home and never show your face again. If you understand, leave now. Go. Just go. Such harsh words. It seems like they were said by my mother-in-law Stacy, but shockingly, they were from me, her daughter-in-law. That's how much I dislike Stacy. If I had a magic lamp and could make 3 wishes, they would all be related to Stacy. That's how much I can't stand her. Despite the awful things she said to me years ago, she still has the nerve to show up. I have so much I want to say, but for now, I just want her to leave quickly. My name is Anne. I'm a 28-year-old office worker. I live with my husband Bill and our 3-year-old daughter Ellen. We lead a reasonably happy life, but there's one thing that troubles me. The existence of Stacy, a woman who is too strong and wicked a character. This goes back to when Bill and I went to his parents' house to announce our marriage. Welcome, I'm Bill's mother. Nice to meet you. My first impression of Stacy was that she was lively and very friendly. She showed no signs of opposing the marriage like you'd see in TV dramas, and we had a pleasant conversation with lots of small talk. That was until a certain topic came up. By the way, Anne, what's your blood type? Stacy asked with a smile, and I replied, Blood type? I'm type B. People often say I'm pretty laid back. The moment I said that, Stacy's face hardened in an instant. What? What happened all of a sudden? Ah, type B, huh? Now that you mention it, you do have that kind of face. I can tell these things, you know. I was panicking inside. That's got to be a lie. What's a type B face? Suddenly, Stacy seemed like a fortune teller to me, and I had to struggle to keep from laughing. I was grateful for my optimistic nature in moments like these. Next to me, my husband grumbled, Mom, that topic again. Give it a rest, please. He was quite upset, but honestly, I wasn't too bothered at that time. For some reason, Stacy despises type B, but I like being type B. Or rather, I was amazed that there are still people who judge others based on their blood type. In the end, Stacy never cheered up, and we practically got kicked out of the house. On the way home, Bill apologized profusely. That's when I learned why Stacy hates type B so much. Apparently, Bill's father John had an affair and divorced Stacy a few years ago, and John was type B. Wait, that's not related to blood type, right? It must have been an unforgivable event for Stacy. The one at fault was John for cheating, not his blood type. It doesn't justify her being so rude to me, a stranger, just because I'm type B. We only have to see each other a few times a year. Bill doesn't like Stacy either. He has an older brother, Ken, and Bill has always been compared to him since they were kids. From what I've heard, Ken always did whatever Stacy said, like a robot. He graduated from a prestigious university and works at a top company. Bill had little to do with his family after moving out, so I was quite relieved. If something happens, they'd probably contact his impressive brother first. I thought. On our wedding day, as expected, Stacy was grumpy the whole time. John and Ken were too busy with work to attend, so we got the message through Stacy, oddly enough. My parents asked, is it normal for his mother to have such a devilish look all the time? When I told my mother about the blood type issue, she said, she's an odd one. My mother is also type B. Now, we live in a state next to both our parents' homes. We go back home for Thanksgiving and New Year's. Bill said it would be fine to just visit my parents, but I thought we should at least make an appearance at his parents' house too. If we didn't go, Stacy would contact Bill. Stacy was still cold to me, but talked normally to Bill. However, Bill was angry at how Stacy treated me, and mostly ignored her. Hey, haven't I told you before? Don't you think it's rude to Anne? Bill would confront her, but she never listened, saying, I just don't like her. Then I had our daughter Ellen. Pregnancy was hard with severe morning sickness, but I never regretted it and felt surrounded by happiness. My parents were thrilled to hold their long-awaited granddaughter. Stacy seemed interested in her grandchild and kept urging Bill to bring us to our house. Bill said he wouldn't let Ellen meet her unless Stacy changed her attitude towards me. After that, the messages from Stacy stopped. I guess I was really disliked. Well, that's fine. Bill had been saying, let's stop going to my parents' house. I'm thinking about cutting ties with them. That's what he said. Maybe I was being stubborn too. That's what I was thinking. During our stay, my mother helped with everything, so I could focus on taking care of Ellen. Feeding her every 3 hours, she preferred breast milk over formula, and I was sleep deprived, but Bill always stops by after work. My parents would hold Ellen when she cried, telling me, "Anne, you should sleep all you can." Those were the days. Even now, thinking back to that day makes my heart ache. My body was slowly recovering postpartum, and while discussing going back home with Bill, who was returning from work, the doorbell rang. My father answered, but the conversation soon turned into an argument. Wondering what it was, Bill and I went to the entrance, and there was Stacy, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. All I'm saying is it's rude to show up unannounced late at night. My father was quite angry, and to him Stacy retorted, "It's because of your stupid daughter not letting me see my grandchild." Stacy was screaming just as furiously. When Stacy saw our family, she said, "You all won't get away with this. Pay for my taxi fare here." She started saying nonsensical things. Noticing Ellen in my arms, she barged into the house, saying, "Oh, it's a girl. What a disappointment. She has such a vulgar face, just like Anne." That was what she said. Everyone must have been thinking the same thing. "Leave right now." Then Bill silently grabbed Stacy's arm, forcefully led her out, and threw her scattered shoes onto the ground. "That hurts. Apologize to me." Stacy shouted at Bill, but he retorted, "What? You should be the one apologizing. You burst in here, yelling and upsetting Anne and Ellen, causing trouble for Anne's parents." His voice trembled with a mix of anger and despair. "Why should I apologize when I came all this way to see them?" Saying that, she left. I was so overwhelmed by the situation that I felt embarrassed and weak in the knees, and the tears came when I remembered Stacy's words about my daughter Ellen. My husband hugged me, apologizing. Later, I learned that my parents had been sending Christmas cards to my husband's family every year. That's how Stacy knew our address. There was never any thank you message from Stacy. Nothing was sent to our home. When my husband heard this, he tearfully apologized to my parents. But they said, "We did it on our own. Don't blame yourself." After that, we stopped interacting with Stacy. We didn't block her number in case of emergencies, but we stopped visiting. Bill kept receiving messages from her, but he ignored them all. When Ellen turned 1, I returned to work. Balancing work, housekeeping, and parenting was tough. My husband actively participated in parenting and took the lead in household chores. When I looked tired, he would say, "Lie down and rest." He was so considerate, it's hard to believe he's Stacy's son. Ellen made lots of friends at the daycare center. As she approached 3 years old, she became more talkative, sometimes calling us teacher instead of mom and dad. Her cute mistakes made both of us dote on her. One day, during a peaceful life, I felt sick while shopping at the local grocery store and had to sit down. Luckily, a nearby employee noticed and called for help. A few hours later, I found myself in a hospital bed. My husband, who was at work, came as soon as he got my message. I was distraught, but holding his hand calmed me. I was in pain, maybe from the anesthesia wearing off after surgery. But I was truly grateful, and then a nurse entered the room. While showing her my condition, my phone rang. "It might be Mom." Unable to move much, I asked the nurse to answer it without checking the screen. After thanking the nurse, she left the room. "Hello, Mom. It was tough, but I'm okay now." There was no response. Thinking it was a wrong number, I was about to hang up when a familiar, unpleasant voice echoed in the room. "What are you okay about? Who's Mom? I'm not your mother." A familiar and disgusting voice echoed in the room. "Is this Stacy?" I asked, but as usual, she wouldn't listen. Apparently, the grocery store employee was Stacy's friend. She must have shown Stacy my photo because she recognized me and told Stacy I was fine. "You can't say you don't know. It's embarrassing. I just played along, but I almost made a fool of myself." In summary, she was complaining about why I hadn't contacted her. She started talking about herself, ignoring my silence. "Are you listening? No one in our family has weak bodies like you. Bill should divorce you and marry a healthier wife. Maybe then he'll have a proper heir." She said such things. "If you're so concerned, why don't you have a son yourself?" I retorted, anger boiling over. "Why don't you drop that outdated idea of an heir?" I said mockingly. "Huh?" It seems my response didn't sit well with Stacy, as I could easily imagine her furious face even over the phone. "I've discussed it with Bill, and we've decided to completely cut ties with you. And by the way, I'm not sick and didn't have surgery." Apparently, Stacy's friend hadn't told her the most important part. In fact, I was pregnant with my second child and had returned to my parents' house for the birth. As the due date approached, I went to the nearby grocery store for some light exercise and shopping. Feeling suddenly unwell, I was rushed to the hospital, where the doctors decided on an emergency C-section. The baby was a boy. I was relieved from the bottom of my heart when I heard his healthy first cry. Yet Stacy had the audacity to treat me as if I were ill and even suggested I should get a divorce. She was truly a baffling person. "To use your own words, you mean an heir? I just gave birth to one." "What?" With that, I hung up the phone and blocked her number. I immediately contacted my husband, who was quite angry. What a waste of time. He was right. I should have avoided any contact from the start. Still, I fondly remember the day we first met, how Stacy kindly spoke to a nervous me. I had hopes we might become close one day, but it seems that was futile. That was the end of it. Or so I thought, until the next day. My son Ben, unlike my daughter Ellen, took well to the bottle. I thought we could manage a mix of breastfeeding and formula, which made me happy. After giving birth, I planned to rest as much as possible during my hospital stay. Just after finishing a long-awaited meal, I noticed some commotion outside. "The visiting hours haven't started yet." I heard a nurse's loud voice. It seemed someone's family member couldn't wait to visit. They must be so excited. I listened to the conversation with a smile. "That doesn't matter. Bring me my heir right now." Then heard a loud woman's voice. I shuddered, instantly realizing who it was. Sadly, my hunch was correct, and soon a nurse burst into the room. "Sorry to disturb you, but a woman claiming to be your mother is causing a scene at the reception." Stacy had the nerve to call herself my mother at the reception, even after telling me not to call her that. But her plan failed miserably, because my parents had visited the day before, and the staff remembered them well. Ellen was also born in this hospital, so Stacy must have guessed I was here. That woman is my husband's mother, and we're planning to cut ties with her. The nurse looked confused for a moment but said, "So she's someone you don't want to see. I'll send her away." However, knowing Stacy's nature, she wouldn't back down easily. "It's fine, I'll go," I said, standing up only to be hit with intense pain. Of course. I had just had surgery. It's bound to hurt. "Stacy, I won't forgive this." As I slowly took steps forward, to my dismay, Stacy was still shouting at the reception. Noticing me, she yelled loud enough for the entire floor to hear. "Anne, I couldn't wait any longer and just had to come." She said such things. I felt a chill run down my spine. I always heard that living people are the scariest, and I truly realized it then. There's nothing more frightening than someone you can't reason with. "Please go home. Everyone's being bothered. Can't you see that?" I spoke calmly, but my whole body ached. A nurse, seeing my discomfort, brought over a wheelchair. Sitting down eased the pain a little, but every movement hurt my wound. "I heard you finally had a boy. Thank you." "I didn't have him for you. Please just go home." Whether she didn't like my attitude or what, Stacy started getting irritated as usual. "Oh, really? Maybe we don't get along because you're type B?" The usual blood type criticism started again. People from other rooms gathered, wondering what was happening. Most glances were directed at Stacy, who, feeling uncomfortable, said, "What? Fine then." Then Stacy turned to the hospital staff and started saying unbelievable things. "Where's my grandson? I'll take him home and raise him myself. Bring him to me quickly." She actually said such a ridiculous thing. The pain in my body and the insanity of Stacy pushed my anger to its limit. "What? Are you kidding me? Stop joking around." I raised my voice and Stacy retorted, "I'm going to start over with child rearing. Ken and Bill were failures." I couldn't comprehend how Stacy, a mother like me, could talk about her children that way. "Go away and never show your face again. If you understand, leave now. Go. Just go." It was the first time I ever yelled at someone like that. My loathing for Stacy had reached its limit. That's when it happened. "What are you doing?" Looking towards the voice, I saw my husband Bill and my parents standing there. I had contacted my husband when I first heard Stacy's voice. Our home and the hospital were close, and the four of them were originally planning to visit me today. "Why are you here? What's going on?" Stacy seemed surprised by Bill's presence, losing her earlier bravado. "Are you going to make another child your toy, just like you did with Ken?" Bill said, pulling Stacy away. He apologized to my parents and the gathered onlookers and left quickly. Stacy was surprisingly quiet. After the storm passed, my husband and I apologized to the people around. Fortunately, no one was angry, and some even encouraged us, saying not to give up. As for Stacy, it turned out that she and John hadn't divorced yet. They were just separated. My husband and I found this out when our daughter Ellen was born. My husband said there was no obligation to let John meet Ellen after his affair, but we visited him since he was the grandfather. John, gentle and polite, didn't seem like someone who would cheat. He even complimented Ellen, saying she was beautiful like me. Then John told us the real reason for everything. Stacy had always been a bit domineering, but it wasn't as bad as now. The change started when Ken quit his job due to an arrogant boss and mental exhaustion. Without income, he returned to his parents' home. John suggested Ken should rest, but Stacy had other ideas. "Unemployed? What a shame," she said, trying to force Ken to go to a job center. Unable to watch this, John suggested they separate. He could have mentioned divorce, but he felt guilty for leaving all the parenting to Stacy while being absorbed in his work. I learned then that John was still supporting Stacy financially, on the condition that if she did anything strange again, he would finally divorce her. After hearing everything my husband said, I didn't know any of this. He was in shock. John mentioned he didn't contact my husband because he didn't want to worry him. My husband often said his family was just a facade. It seemed that for Stacy, family was nothing more than a tool to make herself look good. Unable to admit her own mistakes, she lied about John's infidelity. What was it that Stacy wanted to protect so badly? I pondered this, but mostly felt pity for her. Later, Stacy and John's divorce was finalized. Former Stacy was set to return to her parents' home in the countryside, but she resisted, crying, "I don't want to. I'll stay here." Her parents were both alive and quite strict, as I heard. Maybe former Stacy was also subjected to harsh discipline, but it was clear she was wrong to impose it on her own children. "Leave it to us. We'll make sure she reforms," her parents said, and she was practically dragged back to the countryside. I felt a bit relieved to know that. I hope she reflects on how much she hurt others and lives with a sense of atonement. It might be difficult with her personality, but it's not my concern anymore. We're now a happy family of 4. Our daughter Ellen adores her little brother Ben and has truly become a big sister. My husband has started facing his family issues, often having meals with John and Ken. Ken, free from former Stacy's control, is getting better and recently found a new job. We're planning to celebrate it at our house soon. I'm just starting my journey as a parent, but I want to be the kind of mother my children will be glad to have.